guys, Rhonda here, RK3 Designs, and today I'm going to take you back a little bit. We did a copper finish a few months ago, and I've had so many people email me with questions and asking if there's other products that can be used to create the same finish. So we're going to do the copper again, and this time we're going to do it with a twist. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to use a product that I haven't talked with you guys about. It is Rustoleum hammered paint. It's an oil-based paint, does smell, so if you use it, make sure you're in a ventilated room. But it has a hammered appearance when you just use it normally. If you just paint it, it'll give you a hammered texture. So what I did to prep this board for this finish is I painted it with the hammered paint, and it really gives a cool look. Actually, to be honest with you, you could take this finish, you could paint a board, you could throw some epoxy on it, and you could have a super quick finish. But we're gonna go a step beyond that. You could also prep this with a black or just a copper spray paint. It doesn't matter. I just had a bunch of this paint, and I thought it would be really cool to show you guys different ways to do these products. I've tinted my epoxy, Stone Coat Countertop epoxy, with the hammered paint to a very opaque. I used about probably half a teaspoon. That's how little you use of this stuff. Half a teaspoon to tint 10 ounces. So very opaque. And you want to make sure that you do not get more than 10% of your additive because then you'll kind of start messing with the integrity of the epoxy. So I've also mixed up a little bit of rainforest mica powder from Stone Coat Countertop, tropical turquoise from Stone Coat, and coffee. The reason I did coffee, even though it has the same basic color as the copper that we're doing, it's got a little bit darker tint, and I'm kind of going for an aged copper. So let's get started. Start off with the copper, and we're just going to roll it out. Okay, so I poured out my copper. We'll trial it out. I like using the trial because I'm guaranteed to get the right amount of product on my surface because I'm using a 1/8 inch notch trowel. So I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch of product on my surface. And I'm not worrying about my edges just right now. All right. Now, chop. And the reason I'm chopping this is because, one, to get out my trowel lines. And I know some of y'all laugh about the way I say trowel because you've left it in the comments. But I'm from Texas. You can also use your hand to smooth this out, but another reason I'm using this brush is I'm liking the texture that it's leaving on the surface. As I chop, I'm doing very random chopping. I'm not going in a line, very random. All right, I have quite a bit of product in the brush. Put it back in there. All right, I've got some bubbles appearing. I'm gonna hit it really quick with the torch. This is a finish that we're gonna have to do a lot of hurrying up and waiting on because we're gonna want our epoxies to start kind of setting up and getting gelled. I'm gonna chop out this little area right here. There we go. You can most definitely walk away right now and have a really cool finish. The texture that this is leaving is really neat, but of course we're not gonna do that. Now I'm gonna come in with my tropical turquoise and I'm gonna make kind of an antique weathered look. Copper will tarnish, and it'll get that really pretty patina on it. So that's kind of the look that we're gonna go for in this piece. So I'm gonna take my tropical turquoise, I'm gonna drizzle it over here. Rain tree, same thing. Now I'm gonna do one end kind of heavy and one end very light, just so y'all can kind of see the difference. And now I'm gonna come in with my coffee, and I'm gonna go back over that. Like I said, this end I'm gonna make a little more lighter as far as patina, so that you guys will have some contrast in what they both look like. All right, so now we're gonna chop that in. Now I don't want to over mix this. I want to chop it just enough so that it melds together, but it doesn't make one color. I want the contrast. All right, now I'm gonna dress my edges. This is when I really like to use my hands because I can get up underneath that edge. That way when my epoxy starts to flow over the edge, it flows really nicely and I don't get dry edges. Okay, good. What we wanna do is hit it one more time with the torch, but not a lot. I don't want a lot of heat. So I'm gonna leave it alone. Now I'm noticing I have one line here, and I don't like straight lines in a piece. It doesn't look natural to me. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna soften it out a little bit. And then I'm gonna rechop. So what I've done is I've just softened that turquoise out, so I don't have man-made looking lines. Rechopping so that I'm pulling that pattern back up again. You know, I really like how I softened all that. I think I'm gonna do that here as well. Okay, so I've rechopped it. Therefore, I've kind of brought a few more bubbles back. But that's okay. I'm gonna torch it one more time and then we're gonna let it sit. All right, so intentionally, I've left this end very, very light on the turquoise. I want you guys to be able to see that you don't have to add a lot of that turquoise mica. And then I kind of moved down to this end to where I have quite a bit more. I wanted to show you guys kind of what it was gonna look like. All right, so I'm gonna let this sit about 15 minutes, and then we're gonna come back and do a couple of more things. Okay, so in my creative thinking brain here, I'm thinking I love copper, and copper is very popular down here in Texas. Aged copper is really popular as a decorative type finish. So I'm gonna try something, but I'm only gonna do it on this very end of the board. And if I don't like it, that's okay. Y'all can see, y'all can decide if you like it too. A lot of aged copper, if you go look at it, has some black areas in it. So I'm gonna try to get that look down here on this end. So I'm gonna use some black spray paint, Rustoleum gloss paint, and we're gonna see what happens. And I'm not going 100%. I don't wanna get full 100% coverage, but now I'm gonna just chop it in. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. Now you could over chop this if you're not careful and then just get mud. So I just chopped it enough to get that paint down into the product, and I'm gonna leave it alone. Now we're gonna wait 15 minutes. Okay, so we're back and it's been exactly 23 minutes. The temperature in my studio is 76 degrees. So we're just at the point where I like to go to the next step. And the way I can tell is if I touch, actually if you touch the drips underneath here, you'll see that your drips are pretty stringy. That's how we check to see if a piece is ready to go to the next step, as opposed to grabbing something on the top. Again, I'm going to show you different ways to do this, and I'm going to do different parts of the board a little bit different so that you can get an overall look of the different ways you can do it. I'm going to take a shop towel, and I'm just making a little rose out of it by just wadding it up. We're going to add some texture to this top. Now, I'm going to leave this corner here untouched. I'm not going to add any texture because I want you guys to see what happens when we go to the next step, what has texture and what doesn't have texture. So I'm going to take the rag, and as I bring in some texture, I'm just kind of turning my hand very organically. And as my rag starts to do this, I'm just going to regroup and continue. Now, I'm going to leave a corner, like I said, and I'm going to work my way over. And remember, we have a dark area, we have an area that's got heavy amounts of mica, and then we worked our way down to where we barely have any mica down on this end. So I'm going to give you guys quite a few options here. Now I'm working down into where we had the spray paint. You want to be really careful when you're doing this texture with your rag that you don't over mix. I'm going to get a new rag, hold on. If your rag gets too saturated, you're really not giving it texture, you're just blobbing it. So, new rag. Come down here. All right, so now I've brought back a few bubbles, so I'm very, very lightly gonna hit. All right, now comes the fun part. I've got real teal mixed with 91% isopropyl alcohol. I've mixed about 1/4 ounce to 8 ounces of alcohol. Shake it up really well. What I want to do is now I want to create a look as if something hit this piece of metal and dented it and hammered it. So I'm going to take the alcohol, I'm going to put it in my hand. Okay, now I'm going to just drop it in big drops, and I'm almost kind of throwing it on there because I kind of want it to be forceful. And it's causing some really cool effects. You could also do this with a copper metallic, a brown metallic, any color that you want, you could absolutely do this. I'm going to come over with plain because I don't want to add too much mica powder on top. So now I'm going to add a little bit. Now you don't want to overdo it with the alcohol because what can happen is if you overdo it, your pattern is going to just wash out and run over. So now we're going to leave it alone. We're not going to touch it for another probably 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been right at 33 minutes since we let it set. And I really like it, but I'm going to show you guys a couple of things that you can do. This side, the top where we did not use our rag, is very smooth with some 3D kind of effects. Looks really, really cool. The bottom where we hit with the shop towel is a little more textured looking, and I really like that also. So what I'm going to show you guys, if you have a space like right here, it's very flat looking, and I want to create a little more interest. So I'm just going to take my shop towel again. Mind you, now it's been what, 30, 40, almost an hour since we poured this. I still have working time. So I'm going to take it and I'm just going to add a little bit, not a whole lot, just a little more detail to it. Right where it was flat. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I have some really cool places that I like and I don't want to change it up. But a couple of places I'd like to add a little bit more movement. Up over here, same thing. Now as we get down here into the area where I had sprayed the spray paint, looks really neat. I'm going to touch it, but not a whole lot. Okay. So little bit of heat, not much. Just to pop any of those bubbles that I just caused by pulling it up. All right, I like that. Come back, I guess I'm gonna use a little bit more turquoise. And I'm gonna do the same thing. And then this will be it. And like I said, you don't have to do this. If you like where your piece was at the 30-minute mark, you definitely don't have to do this. I just wanted to show you guys how you can get a lot of texture or you can get a very soft texture. All right, looks good. So when you use alcohol, a lot of times, especially if you use the alcohol at the end of the pour, you'll get these little divots. And what that is surface tension caused by the alcohol. They're very easy to deal with. Take your finger and you can just touch them. They'll go away. If it's a very big one, you can just pick up some drips from your table, touch them, and they'll be good. If you miss a few and you come back the next morning and you see these little divots, don't panic, because when you put a flood coat on this, your flood coat is gonna feel those divots and it's gonna be smooth as glass. Check out my website and the link below. You'll be able to see some more pictures and you'll see a recipe of this finish. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, hit the bell for future notifications, and let me know what you think about in the comments. Would you have gone a step further? Would you have added black spray paint? Would you have even added any of the mica powders? Leave me a comment. I love hearing your guys' idea. Until next time, remember, don't be scared, move forward, and be creative.